On a sunbaked Indonesian island, a hulking lizard waits. It mauls, it poisons, and it strolls behind dying prey as if claiming the scene. This is the Komodo dragon. Our question is simple and terrible. How does a giant lizard poison, maul, and calmly follow its prey toward death? The answer mixes anatomy, bacteria, venom, and ruthless patience. Varanus komodoensis is not a scaled dinosaur fantasy. It is a living predator built for maiming and slow, inevitable killing, a predator that turns sickness into a hunting strategy. Visitors call it terrifying. Scientists call it brilliant. To understand why it follows dying prey, we must dissect jaws, venom glands, immunity, and the brutal choreography of ambush. This video will pull aside the skin and look into the biological machinery of a predator that combines sheer force with biochemistry to harvest delayed death. Imagine being bitten, your blood seeping, and a patient hunter trailing your collapse hours later. That patience is the Komodo's advantage, born from evolution on isolated islands. We'll examine teeth like serrated blades, a mouth full of grim microbes, specialized oral glands, and a metabolism that turns decay into opportunity. Every trait answers the central mystery. Expect clinical detail and horror. Expect slow-motion cruelty and scientific clarity. Our tone is urgent. Komodo dragons are efficient, remorseless consumers of weakness and disease. They are island giants shaped by scarcity. With little competition, evolution favored patience over speed. That trade-off explains much of the killing method we're about to explore. First, the body. Powerful limbs, tail like a battering ram, and jaws designed to tear. Each feature is an instrument of violence, honed to end life slowly, decisively, efficiently. Komodo dragons reach 3 meters and more. Their skulls are reinforced. Muscles anchor close to the bite point. A single shake can rip flesh from bone with terrifying ease. Their teeth are recurved and serrated, acting like steak knives sliding backward. They don't chew, they shear and pull, leaving wounds that bleed and invite infection. The tongue is forked and constantly tasting the air. It samples scent molecules, mapping trails of blood and fear over long distances with uncanny precision. Their sense of smell, tied to that tongue and the Jacobson's organ, can detect carrion from kilometers away. A dying animal is a beacon on the wind. Beneath a scaly exterior lies a surprising immune resilience. Komodos tolerate infections that would kill others, letting wounds fester without losing the ability to hunt. Their blood chemistry supports long fasting and slow digestion. They can gorge and then follow a prey's slow decline for hours or days while conserving energy. Inside the mouth, historically blamed bacteria flourish. Pasteurella and others colonize oral tissues, turning a bite into a mobile incubator of infection. Recent science revealed venom-producing glands along the lower jaw. These secrete compounds that lower blood pressure, inhibit clotting, and intensify bleeding and shock. Venom plus bacteria is a brutal 1-2. The venom's toxins accelerate collapse. The microbes ensure infection. Together, they transform a wound into a ticking corpse clock. Physically, the Komodo's neck and jaw muscles allow a powerful clamp and shake, tearing strips of flesh. That initial mauling both disables and loads the wound with biological weapons. Their tongue also detects hormones emitted by stressed animals. A wounded herbivore's panic becomes a chemical flare the dragon can follow with unnerving patience. The heart and circulatory response to venom is crucial. Toxins dilate vessels, drop blood pressure, and promote hemorrhage, making distant collapse more likely after a bite. Neurological control is primitive, but effective. Dragons operate on simple, lethal motor programs: detect, bite, follow, and feed. No moral calculus, only brutal efficiency. Skin isn't just armor, it's a canvas of bacteria. Scales trap organic debris and microbes, ensuring every mouthful becomes an infection vector for future victims. Saliva itself carries a cocktail of enzymes and microbes. When injected into tissue, it accelerates decay and disrupts healing, steadily turning living flesh into easy meat. Evolution on islands favors opportunism. Komodos evolved to exploit every weakness: wounds, disease, scavenging. Their biology is less about speed and more about inevitability. Their digestive system tolerates rotting flesh and high bacterial loads that would poison lesser carnivores. Stomachs and gut flora neutralize what would be lethal elsewhere. They can consume nearly half their body in one meal. That gluttony is paired with slow metabolism. Energy conserved between feasts lets them stock long-term outcomes. Juveniles, by contrast, are agile and arboreal. Young Komodos avoid adult brutality by living in trees, a life stage that hints at complex survival strategies across ages. Females have robust pelvis and egg-laying anatomy. Clutches may be guarded or hidden. Reproductive biology intersects with brutal survival. More offspring helps offset adult mortality. Recordings show a hiss-like alarm and head bob displays. Though solitary, Komodos use striking body language to warn, threaten, and coordinate during feeding and mating. Muscle fiber composition favors bursts of power over endurance. They can sprint short distances, strike violently, then revert to slow stalking, a relay of violence and patience. Their senses are tuned for decay and weakness. Vision picks up movement. Olfaction tracks blood. Internal physiology resists infection. Each trait answers why they can follow dying prey. Scientific names matter. Varanus komodoensis anchors these facts in taxonomy, a monitor lizard that evolved island scale size and a unique blend of venom and microbial warfare. Anatomy sets the stage. Now, watch behavior. How a Komodo turns biological tools into hunting theater. The bite, the patient tailing, and the final claim on weakening prey. Hunting begins with ambush. Komodos hide near trails and water holes, waiting for ungulates or pigs. A sudden, explosive strike folds anatomy into action. Bite, slash, retreat. They deliver a glancing bite, not always fatal. That intentional wound maximizes bleeding and contaminates tissue while minimizing risk to the predator. It's surgical cruelty. After the bite, some dragons follow at a distance, tracking scent and blood. They do not hurry. Their advantage is time. Prey tires, infection sets in, collapse follows. At times, multiple Komodos will participate in a kill. Dominant individuals may take the prime cuts while subordinates wait. Feeding can be a violent, hierarchical affair. They are opportunists and scavengers. A dragon will gorge on carrion, lingering to monopolize a carcass. Their appetite shapes local food webs and invites dangerous confrontations. Surveillance of wounds is clinical. Komodos will revisit biting sites, tasting flesh and blood, mapping the decay trajectory until the animal dies and the feast begins. They use stealth rather than speed over distance. A sprint ends bloodshed. Stalking exploits weakness. Their hunting choreography is elegant cruelty. Strike, inject, shadow, reclaim. Komodos display problem solving. They may pull poisoned bait or drag carcasses to safe spots. Intelligence is applied to maximize caloric gain while minimizing injury risk. Their tolerance for bacterial loads lets them consume rotting material others avoid. That dietary breadth increases their food security in an unpredictable island mosaic. When hunting large prey like deer, a dragon's bite can be non-lethal at first. The magic happens in the hours after. Toxin, infection, and stress collapse the animal. They sometimes hunt cooperatively. At others, they fight for dominance over kills. Social tolerance erupts into violence fast, reinforcing a brutal, flexible code around food resources. Komodos can detect intestinal parasites and rotten organs through scent. They prioritize nutrient-rich parts first, consuming liver and organs with an almost forensic appetite. Feeding frenzies are loud and bloody. Blood sprays, tails thrash, and even adult dragons may be injured in the chaos. Survival sometimes demands brutal risk-taking. A struck animal may run for hours. Komodos follow the chemical trail, patient and remorseless. They accept delayed satisfaction, because island life rewards efficiency over haste. They exploit water holes where prey concentrate. By waiting in ambush, dragons intercept animals weakened by thirst, turning basic survival needs into hunting opportunities. Young dragons invert this story. They climb trees to avoid adults, hunting small prey in the canopy. Ontogenetic shifts reduce cannibalism and spread predatory pressure across niches. Komodos sometimes cache food, dragging carcasses into shaded lairs. These larders feed the dominant dragon and are guarded violently, a chilling example of property enforced by teeth. They can detect faint blood scents days old. This chemosensory patience turns every brush of prey into a long-term claim. Following death is as much art as instinct. Introduced food sources like human refuse change behavior. Some Komodos adapt to scavenging near settlements, blurring lines between wild predation and dangerous human-wildlife encounters. They exhibit patience that feels almost cruel to human eyes. It's not malice, it's adaptation. Wait, follow, and harvest a weakened prey without unnecessary risk. Observers note a terrifying calm as a dragon tails a mortally wounded animal. The creature's stillness amplifies horror. It rarely rushes. It lets biology do the killing for it. Sometimes they ambush in groups, sometimes alone. That flexibility reflects ecological reality. Food is patchy, and survival favors predators that can switch tactics instantly. An attacked buffalo may endure fever and systemic infection before collapsing. The Komodo's bite is a slow-motion execution, patient and inexorable, leaving observers unnerved and fascinated. Their behavior blurs scavenger and hunter categories. They create death where there was none and exploit it, a predator built to convert suffering into calories. This solitary brutality has social consequences. Komodos are not wolves. They are loners, whose feeding hierarchies and rare interactions reveal a violent, pragmatic social code. Komodo encounters are negotiations. A dominant individual asserts priority with hisses, head bobs, and lunges. Subordinates accept scraps or risk injury. Conflict resolution through intimidation and force. During mating, males fight brutally. They stand on hind legs and wrestle, gouging each other with teeth and claws. Reproduction itself becomes violent spectacle. Males may be injured or killed in contests. Stronger males gain access to females and better feeding sites, so reproductive success is tightly linked to physical domination. Females sometimes guard nests aggressively. They excavate deep holes, then defend eggs from predators including other Komodos, a rare moment of parental investment in an otherwise brutal life. Cannibalism is real. Adults will eat juveniles. This forces young dragons into trees, shaping their behavior and life history. Survival depends on avoiding larger mouths. At carcasses, strict rank dictates access. Dominant dragons feed first, sometimes chasing or biting competitors. The feeding ground is a microcosm of violence and resource control. They use scent marks to communicate. Urine and feces signal territory and status, a chemical language that reduces needless fights and helps regulate population spacing. Interactions with humans are fraught. Where Komodos learn to associate people with food, boldness increases. That adaptation becomes dangerous for both species. Even solitude has structure. Home ranges overlap, but individuals avoid prolonged contact. Komodos are like islands within islands, neighbors who respect distance until resources demand conflict. Observational studies show sleeping sites and habitual trails. These repeated patterns create a map of dominance, movement, and potential confrontation across the landscape. Juveniles communicate alarm calls with body postures and tail flicks. Their social learning includes where to hunt and how to avoid adults, a cultural transmission inside a brutal world. Competition spikes after large kills. Dominant dragons must defend spoils from packs of opportunistic conspecifics, turning a feast into a violent, pulsing arena of survival. Some interactions are cooperative by necessity, driving large prey into water or ambush points. Such rare coordination hints at flexible problem-solving beyond raw aggression. Mothers may pluck hatchlings from nests and sometimes rebury them to confuse predators. Maternal behavior can be surprisingly strategic and protective in an otherwise harsh life history. Reproduction ties behavior and brutality together. Eggs, fights, cannibalism, and survival strategies create a life cycle shaped by scarcity and the constant hunger for resources. Females lay clutches of around 20 eggs in dry season nests or abandoned megapode nests. Incubation lasts months, and vulnerability is highest long before hatchlings glimpse the sun. Hatching is chaotic. Tiny dragons burst from shells and immediately face threats: predators, sibling competition, and even hungry adults. Survival by stealth begins at birth. Juveniles live in trees for years, feeding on insects and small birds to avoid cannibalism. This arboreal childhood delays growth, but increases chances of reaching adulthood. Sexual maturity arrives slowly. Females reproduce every few years, investing heavily in each clutch. Low reproductive rates make populations vulnerable to human disturbance and stochastic shocks. Infanticide and cannibalism reduce juvenile density. It's brutal but adaptive. Fewer survivors means more resources per juvenile, increasing the odds that some reach adulthood. Some females display nest guarding, staying near eggs to deter predators. This maternal sacrifice highlights tension between solitary lifestyles and episodic parental investment. Climate affects incubation. Warmer sands speed development, but can skew sex ratios or lower hatch success. Rising temperatures may thus reshape Komodo demographics in coming decades. Some Komodos reproduce asexually through parthenogenesis when mates are absent. A female can produce viable offspring alone, an eerie backup tactic for isolated island life. Survival curves are steep. Most juveniles die young. Those that survive must avoid adults, find food, and grow fast. Life is a gauntlet of teeth, disease, and scarcity. Beyond individual drama lies ecosystem impact. Komodos shape prey populations, carcass dynamics, and disease cycles, acting as both apex predator and ecological engineer on their islands. As apex predators, Komodos regulate herbivore numbers. By removing weak individuals, they influence herd health and behavior. indirectly shaping vegetation and habitat structure. Their scavenging recycles nutrients quickly. Carcasses dragged into shade return protein to the soil and feed a suite of organisms, creating micro-ecosystems around kills. Komodos influence disease ecology. By concentrating carrion, they can amplify or dampen pathogen transmission among scavengers, with consequences for island health and biodiversity. Their predation pressure favors tough, cautious prey. Over evolutionary time, island ungulates and pigs adapt behaviorally and morphologically to avoid Komodo predation patterns. Removing Komodos would cascade. Prey populations could explode, vegetation would shift, and carcass distribution would change, affecting birds, insects, and microbes dependent on carrion. Introduced species and human impacts distort this balance. Goats, deer, and trash provide unnatural food sources, increasing Komodo densities and human conflict risks. Conservation requires holistic thinking, protect habitat, manage prey populations, and limit human-wildlife overlap. Ignoring these links risks entropy in a tightly coupled island system. Komodos also reveal evolutionary experiments, gigantism in monitors, venom evolution, and behavioral plasticity. They are case studies in how isolation creates extreme life strategies. Tourism and feeding stations alter natural selection. When humans inadvertently subsidize dragons, we change which traits are advantageous, with unpredictable long-term ecological costs. Understanding their role forces ethical questions. Do we sanitize nature's brutality, or accept predators as essential actors? The Komodo's horror is ecological, not moral. Yet humans complicate both. Captivity and feeding shows reduce fear and reshape behavior. When dragons learn to associate people with food, their ancient hunting script becomes dangerous for human communities. Habitat loss shrinks the stage on which these predators play. Fewer islands, fewer prey, and more contact with people make conservation urgent and morally fraught. Scientific fascination must not become exploitation. Documenting Komodos is vital, but sensationalism that invites feeding or disturbance accelerates their decline and endangers locals. Varanus komodoensis teaches a bleak lesson. Nature's cruelty is efficient and adaptive. The Komodo strategy, maim, poison, wait, exposes how evolution weaponizes biology itself. You saw the mechanisms: jaws, venom, microbes, patience, and ecology. The giant lizard that poisons and calmly follows death is both monster and marvel, and our stewardship determines its future.